My name's Gavin. I own and operate an SEN software. We do custom web development, but kind of on the side of that side business, I started building a tool called BestParse. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You can take a look at it. Can everybody see my screen okay?
I do.
Yep.
Okay, great. So, so this is BestParse. It's at bestparse.com if you want to check it out. Basically, I call this a magic API for data parsing and data extraction. And this was really born out of a need that I had for this type of tool on like multiple different occasions. So one example is I had a client that wanted to kind of scrape business listings from all over the country from different chambers of commerce. And the immediate issue I hit was, although I can write a like a scraper with like Puppeteer or something like that to scrape content. Basically, anytime we move from one city to another, I would have to rewrite that scraper to be usable on those other from those other chamber websites. And then also, if you've ever written scrapers before, you know that if even a little bit of the website changes, you have to update your scraper. So it was kind of born out of a need for that, as well as another tool that I'm building that scrapes content from emails. And then previously, I had an app in the App Store that would present decks that people built with a trading card game. And so what I needed to do was go find those decks that people had posted online. And I was trying to manually write code to parse that data out. But this tool really would have let me do that in a much more automated, faster, and more reliable way with not nearly as much manual intervention. So that's really the idea where it came from. I can go ahead and give a little example of how it kind of works and what you can do with it.
Yes, please.
So this is the home page. This is like a quick example, just like kind of hard-coded example of what kind of result you can get. So for example, you can send in literally a mess of text in any format with punctuation issues, spacing issues, kind of like you see here. And then once the API once it runs through the API, it can give you JSON in return. And the JSON that it gives you, you can customize what properties it returns, the format of the result string, and things like that. So that's just a quick example that's hard coded, but I recently put in on the dashboard a playground. So this lets you essentially just try it out using your credits, and you can customize the data you want to return, and then you can put in the content that you want to scrape from. And so a quick example that I always like to do is similar to what I mentioned before with the Chambers of Commerce directory listing. So you can literally go to a website like this. So this is the Nashville Chamber of Commerce business directory. And so typically, if you wanted to scrape this data, you would have to write a scraper that visits the site, gets the content, and returns what you need. But what you can do with this is you can literally just do Control A, Control C, and then Control V into the playground here. And you typically do this with code. It's an API, so you would do it with code to actually take the text content from the site and run it through BestParse. But in the playground example, like I'll show you just copy and pasting like all this text. And then if I go ahead and hit send, so I already have this configured to get business name, address, the second line of the address. And you can actually configure like with a format you want, like a phone number to come in as an example. But you can read through the documentation if you kind of want to see the details of how it works, and I'll be happy to answer any questions afterwards. So if I go ahead and send this, the way that the API works is as soon as you send the request, the API will return a 200 OK. And in the background, asynchronously, it'll process and parse that data out that you requested. And then once it's done, it'll send the response to a webhook URL that you provide. And that really lets you do it asynchronously, so you don't have to sit there and wait for the response, because it does take some time depending on the data to get the response back. So this is the request that I just sent right here. It took 18 seconds for it to parse and come back. So that's why we do it asynchronously. So you don't have to have your client side tied up or server side tied up waiting for that response. And then if I click these brackets here, it'll actually show me the result that I had gotten back. So from that whole copy and pasted text, I got this clean JSON, and this is what gets sent via the webhook to the webhook that you predefine. Um, and that's pretty much it. Pretty simple tool. Again, I'm using the UI side of it. It's not really designed as a UI tool. I think I can build some tools to layer on top of it to kind of accomplish that, but really it's for developers to use as an API.
Yeah,
And yeah, I guess I'll take any questions at this point if anybody has any questions.
that's a great idea. And I'm curious, is it validated JSON coming out?
Yeah, so I have a bunch of redundancy checks in place to make sure that the result is actually JSON.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of there's a lot more things that I could do with that. I kind of got like proof of concept going and see if anyone's actually interested in it, and then I have a ton of ideas of things that I'd
Yeah.
like to do with it. But yeah,
Well, I think,
it does validate JSON before it comes out.
okay. So you're guaranteed that what you pull in is it's gonna you're not gonna, that's always one of the challenges with the language models, right? Is
Yeah.
getting ensuring that you're getting validated JSON. So that's great.
Jim, please go ahead. You had a question, I see.
Perfect timing. I've just taken a bite of food. So it was basically a simple question, but could you pre-process the incoming pasted data, even though through an API, and reduce the token cost? Or is there a risk you would lose usable data by kind of processing the incoming text?
So I actually when I originally did this, I started with a model for the pricing where the lower amount of tokens that you passed in resulted in a lower cost for your credit. But I thought it was too complicated and too hard to explain, especially in like a little snippet box on a website landing page. So I decided to simplify it and just keep it one credit as one parse. But yeah, I mean, ideally, like especially with something like website scraping, if you know, like, okay, this is the navigation and the header, I'm going to strip that out. I'm going to strip out the bottom navigation area or the chat window that pops up, whatever. Strip all that out and send me only the basics of what you need. But I think in the future, yeah, you can probably definitely add some kind of
Yeah, if I'm honest, Gavin, I wasn't necessarily thinking about passing those cost savings on to the customer. Your cost.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't think I could really, because it's designed to handle really any type of data, whether it's a website being scraped or an email. I don't really know if across the board I can say um, what can be safely removed from that initial request. And
Yeah.
really the most of that cost comes from the response back. So from the models. And I think that will change over time too. So yeah, good question though.
Well, and in terms of, is there a market fit? I possibly got a use case for this as stuff that I'm trying to do, which is it's more about website analysis, but outputting that in a kind of universal usable format like JSON could well be useful. I'm not quite sure how I want to use it programmatically at the moment, but I can certainly see room to investigate, if that makes sense.
Okay, very good. Yeah, thanks. And also I'll mention right now, if I put a coupon code for anyone that wants to try it for 50% off. It's AIPH. It's 50% off lifetime for the next 2 weeks if anyone wants to actually give it a shot. So it's only like less than $5 for 600 credits, and you can cancel anytime and all that stuff. So if anybody wants to try it, it's there for you. Again,
Yeah.
it's AIPH is the coupon code.
please drop that into the Slack, preferably the share your thing channel. So I think we've got plenty of people who might be interested in trying that out. So yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, and I just shared a link to a Twitter profile by Dmitro. So he built a tool called Screenshot One. So I'm watching closely to his journey for like the last 6 months, I think. So he created a tool for making the screenshots of the web pages. And first, he thought that the UI part of that would be popular. So people would decide to check whether their website is displayed properly on different devices. And that was like the whole premise of his application. But like the further he got with that product, the more he understood that people would like to use the API in the first place. And he like pivoted a bit into the like API side of things. And right now his tool is like mostly API, and like the majority of the revenue that he gets comes from the API consumers. So that might be the product and like the journey that you'd like to take a look at. So he's getting closely to 5K monthly revenue with his application. And the API thing is like something that has been a breakthrough for his product. So maybe you'd like to check out his journey, or like I don't know, book a call to chat about that, or like something like this, because I think like the premise of the product is like pretty similar. So that's the first point. The second is that how do you make sure that AI produces a valid JSON and the results would be consistent over time? Because from what I know, OpenAI released the JSON output parameter only like a couple months ago during their dev day. So have you checked whether you've got the proper JSON as an output every time, or you've got like some percent of like bad requests that you get from
So
that?
if I every time I've tested it where I've sent the correct request, it's come back with valid JSON. The only time I've gotten an error, which you can actually see on the dashboard there, there's one error, is because I didn't send any content in the body. So I was basically saying extract this data from, and then nothing. And so then I got like an empty response back. But if I structure it properly, and that's kind of what the API's job is to make sure that all that stuff has been provided properly before it actually tries to do the extraction. I've gotten a valid response back every time. So I can't say 100% because I haven't tested it at scale. But you know, I've done probably a couple hundred attempts with it, and I've gotten back very consistent responses. And I think the reason why it comes back very consistent is because, number one, you're asking for something very specific to be pulled out, and also I don't think that the language model tries to hallucinate anything based on like an open-ended question. I'm not really asking an open-ended question of the language model. I'm basically giving it a set of data to work from, and it's extracting information from that. So like if you say, give me the suite number of this business, and the business does not have a suite number, it doesn't just make one up. It'll actually just not return a suite number. And then I have a lot of stuff that goes into the prompt to kind of correct that as well. And then as far as the actual structure of the JSON coming back in proper JSON, I do check that prior to a credit being spent on your from your API key, or the actual result being sent to the webhook. And so as more people use this, hopefully I can monitor that, and if there's any outliers and things like that, I can address them kind of as needed.